Lancelot's total health has been reduced from 16,000 to 15,000, meaning that instead of being amongst the average health tier characters, he's instead one of the lower ones. Still above Avatar Belial at 14,000 health, but he joins the likes of Nier, Fairy, and Matera with having slightly lower health than average. Lancelot's standing light has been changed a little bit, a combination of buffs and nerfs. To get into the nerfs, there's been 2 frames of recovery added on, so it's no longer +4 on block, instead it's only +2. Before, you would be able to frame trap with a close heavy slash that's well timed against an opponent's reversal mash.
Great.
This frame trap no longer works in this current version. If the opponent has a 6 frame normal, they'll be able to contest the gap. So overall, this is a pretty big step down for Lancelot's pressure game and reward for frame trapping. He can still, of course, do it with medium close slash. But he's not getting a heavy counter hit, so it's a lot less damage. However, the Standing Light's front hitbox has been expanded, and you can now chain into it after 2 crouching light attacks. You can now get triple attack light sequences to help out his Abare pressure. Do note, though, that against some characters, this is only going to work against a crouching opponent. As you can see here, a standing grand, this third light whiffs. Close standing heavy slash also received a couple of changes. One is a very minor nerf where it builds 1% less gauge than before for the Skybound art. It's 9% here in the old patch. And now only builds 8% of Skybound art gauge. It has a couple other changes as well. The pushback has been reduced from the first hit and increased for the second hit, probably to maintain just the overall spacing from the move itself, while reducing the chances of the opponent falling out of the first hit and having the second hit whiff for then Lancelot to get whiff punished, as well as the hitbox of the second hit has been expanded forward to again probably reduce on these instances. A nice little quality of life thing that I'm sure Lancelot players will trade the 1% of SBA gauge for. Lancelot's dash heavy attack was also buffed. The travel speed and distance has been increased. You'll note here that our round start position this whiffs. As you can see, it reaches from round start now. Since he can combo from this, he appreciates being able to hit this move more often. His medium fireball, Worgenstrom, has had his recovery reduced by 5 frames, meaning that at point blank it's now +9 on block instead of +4. On hit, it's +13 instead of +8, and the overall duration of the move is 45 frames instead of 50, making it safer to throw out in neutral. A fun implication of this is that you can now frame trap the opponent off of the medium fireball point blank with 2H. And if they get hit raw, you still get a combo.
Great.
So it's a fun little tidbit there. I'm not sure if Lancelot will actually use this bit of tech, but it's a good thing to know that you might have to adjust your pressure around it, especially since heavy slash is going to true string from this. Ultimate Blade Impulse has received a nerf and a buff. The nerf is that it's had its recovery increased by 2 frames, so instead of being -4, it's now -6 and therefore punishable. To compensate for this, the pushback after the follow-up has been adjusted to be closer upon landing. This does improve Lancelot's combo ability off of this move.
Great.
At that range, I get a far heavy slash in the old version. On block, you're pretty close to -6, so the opponent's going to basically get a guaranteed light punish on you if this move is blocked. However, as a combo tool, it's a little more versatile because you get better extensions off of it.
Great.
Do keep in mind that if you do hit this raw, it is subject to the universal mechanic that has scaled ultimate skills as starting attacks. But in the middle of a combo, you can use this for a pretty nice side swap. All in the meanwhile, renewing your triple attack sequence on the ground. So overall, it's sort of a neutral change that we'll see if Lancelot overall enjoys more often than not. Considering that the fact that this is better combo utility, while the move as a whole has been nerfed pretty much in line with what we're seeing from other ultimate skills, I don't think he's going to notice the nerf too much. The medium version of Southern Cross has its travel speed and distance increased. This barely whiffs a step away from round start. At the same distance, it now hits. I'm not sure how much utility this has because it is a very minor buff overall, but there might be a combo route or some link that might exist now because of this update. The follow-up to it, however, has been nerfed. The SBA gauge has been reduced severely in order to make it comparable to other multi-hit skills. You build about 19% in the old patch. And now you can see at the last hit I didn't even build meter. Instead, we stopped at 60%. So overall, it's a 9% SBA gauge loss for Lancelot here. I feel like this is going to be a nerf that he does notice and appreciate when he's not able to build up as much meter as he could before to use his great ultimate skills. All versions of Turbulence have had a couple of changes applied to them. Namely that if you hold up after the attack, you no longer get any of the follow-up attacks, which means you're able to use air normals that use the same version of the move that you just did. Additionally, the follow-up taps can now be input buffered, and the startup to the follow-up has been reduced by 3 frames, going down to 10 from 13. This is how the Turbulence looked before. And here's how it looks now. The input buffer definitely helps make the move a lot more usable, and it's also very easy to queue up the same aerial attack that I want to use from the version I started with by holding up. The heavy version of Turbulence's follow-up also has increased ground bounce height in order to get you better confirms. I see this all coming together to give him better anti-airs off of 2H. It feels pretty easy to link the close medium slash once you get used to it. That with the new input buffer timing that you can get as well means I think Lancelot has better anti-air combos as a result of all these changes. There could be some other things that I'm missing in here as well that do apply to the character, but overall I think he enjoys most of the Turbulence changes. Now onto the Ultimate version. Ultimate Turbulence, however, seems to have received a fair number of nerfs. The frame advantage on successful hit has gone down from 45 frames to 31 frames, but the distance on hit has been reduced as well to the opponent.
Great. Great.
You are right next to the opponent right now, but you certainly don't have enough frame data to go for a safe jump here. And in a game with a block button that is going to be able to deal with left-right mix-ups, I don't think you're really feasting on the opportunity all of a sudden to put the opponent into a left-right mix-up from this too often. Additionally, the recovery of the move has been increased by a total of 7 frames. On block, this is now negative 25 instead of negative 18, and on whiff, it's negative 78 instead of negative 71. I think there's going to be some characters who are going to enjoy getting a dashing heavy attack starter combo on Lancelot in these situations where they couldn't before. Delta Leap also received a few nerfs. The wall cling time has been increased by 3 frames, going up from 12 to 15. This means that the opponent has slightly longer to hit Lancelot out of this and interrupt his movement. Additionally, during a wall cling, you are now in a counter-hittable state. Here before, you were just in punish counter. Here's how they look now. It's noticeably slower, even if it's a small difference of 3 frames. Keep in mind that the counter hit frames are only being activated when you're actually clinging to the wall, so there's a 15-frame window now where the opponent can get you with a counter hit move. I don't see this being the biggest of deals right there, unless the opponent has like a crazy hard read on you going for this option. Once you get hit by that, you have the extended hits to follow the floor and have the opponent follow up, depending on the situation. This probably isn't going to occur from someone who goes for a rising jump, but probably one who jumps in at you as you're going for this option. The last change of Lancelot is to his Worble Wind crossover, a follow-up to his unique skill on the ground. The travel speed and distance has been increased, as well as it's been adjusted so that he's able to have reduced distance after he gets a cross-up. The final thing as well is that it now crosses up opponents in the corner. This is how it looks like now. It feels like the intent is to give it a consistent spacing after you do cross up while letting you do it from farther away. Do know that the total frames it takes to actually cross up hasn't been changed at all. It's 18 frames in both versions. The corner steal is pretty cool. I'm honestly a little bit surprised with how much of these changes seem to be nerfs towards Lancelot. His health's been reduced, his SBA gauge has been reduced, and he's a character that has ultimate skills that are worth using, or at least were worth using before they had a couple of nerfs to them to make him a bit more punishable in situations, as well as being less rewarding to use to start off your combos as a neutral call-out tool of sorts. I don't know. There's a couple of buffs here and there for him, of course, that I think he'll appreciate, but I feel like with how the game shifted overall, he's not really going to be enjoying these changes. We'll see how he fares, though. He is a left-right, high-low mix-up character in a game with a block button that does exist, and we'll see how he fares because there are definitely other top-tier characters and other characters in general that have also received nerfs. So ultimately, we'll see where he lands, but I don't have a favorable outlook of him going forward. Maybe I'm in the wrong.